The air in the throne chamber of the Cathar Empire was thick with the scent of ozone and the heavy perfume of the Imperatrix Xylara's exotic flora. The chamber itself was a feat of bioarchitecture, a vast cavern carved from a single moon rock, illuminated by pulsating bioluminescent fungi that cast long, unsettling shadows. She stood 5 meters tall, a towering monument of obsidian carapace and shimmering emerald-scaled flesh, a creature of terrifying, regal beauty. Her eyes, multifaceted and cold, were fixed on the newest, smallest, and arguably most irritating addition to her collection, the human male, Alex. The sheer scale of the room dwarfed him, the vaulted ceilings disappearing into a haze of colored light, the floor made of polished, dark crystal that reflected Xylara's immense form like a still black lake. Every sound Alex made, every breath, every footstep, was magnified and absorbed by the cavernous space, a constant reminder of his insignificance. The silence between his sighs was a heavy, oppressive thing, broken only by the distant, rhythmic clang of the Imperial Guard's armor. Alex was contained within a shimmering energy field, a cage of pure, humming force that smelled faintly of burnt toast and ozone. The field vibrated at a frequency just low enough to be a persistent, annoying drone, a subtle form of psychological torture Xylara's scientists had perfected after studying 1,000 lesser species. For Xylara, it was a necessary precaution, a containment unit for a creature whose only predictable trait was its unpredictability. The species, designated Homo sapiens, was known for its unpredictable aggression and alarming capacity for adaptation, a fact that both fascinated and repelled the Queen. For Alex, it was just a really, really boring room. He had tried everything to disrupt the field, kicking, shouting, even attempting to throw a small, dried piece of nutrient paste at it, but the cage held firm, mocking his efforts with its impenetrable glow. "The specimen appears restless," Xylara rumbled, her voice a deep, resonant chord that vibrated through the chamber's crystal floor, causing a faint tremor in the air. She addressed her chief xenobiologist, a nervous, four-armed creature named Zid, whose skin was the color of old parchment. "Is it suffering from a deficiency? Is its environment unsuitable? I demand a full report on its psychological state." The data models predicted a period of compliance followed by a desperate attempt at escape, not this listlessness. Zid nervously adjusted his spectacles, his 4 hands twitching with anxiety. "No, Imperatrix. All vital signs are optimal. Oxygen, nutrient paste, ambient temperature, all calibrated to Earth standard. We even introduced a small, harmless Cathar rodent for environmental interaction, which the human promptly named Jerry and attempted to teach how to play fetch. The human simply paces, and occasionally sighs very loudly, a vocalization we have categorized as exhalation of extreme discontent." Alex stopped pacing and looked up at the towering Queen. He had tried screaming, he had tried pleading, and he had tried explaining the concept of habeas corpus, a term that only seemed to confuse Zid. None of it worked. Now he was trying something new, weaponized boredom, a uniquely human form of passive-aggressive resistance. He knew that for a being dedicated to efficiency and conquest, a subject that simply stopped being interesting was the ultimate failure. "Your Majesty," Alex called out, his voice surprisingly clear despite the force field, a small act of defiance in itself. "Imperatrix Xylara, we need to talk about the amenities package, specifically the glaring lack thereof. I'm filing a formal complaint under the Galactic Convention on Humane Containment. Article 7, subsection B, the right to not go utterly bonkers from sheer, mind-numbing monotony." Xylara paused, one massive, clawed hand hovering over a control panel that could, presumably, vaporize him and turn the entire cage into a cloud of superheated plasma. Her multifaceted eyes narrowed, focusing on the tiny human. "Amenities? You are a prisoner of war-like specimen. You have the amenity of continued existence, a privilege few of your kind are offered. Your galactic convention is a fabrication of your primitive species. Do not test the limits of my patience." "Exactly," Alex exclaimed, clapping his hands together, the sound sharp and entirely out of place in the silent chamber. "And what good is continued existence if you're not living? Look, I appreciate the high-tech cage, really. Top-notch force field, great acoustics. But after 3 sleep cycles, I've counted every single microscopic imperfection on this floor, and I've memorized the flight patterns of those little glow bugs that float near the ceiling. I'm hitting peak boredom, and trust me, you don't want to see a human at peak boredom. We get creative. We start making things out of thin air. I'm about 2 hours away from attempting to weave a hammock out of my own hair, and then I'll start composing epic poetry about the texture of the nutrient paste. You don't want that data, Zylara. It's useless. Zylara's massive head tilted, a gesture that in her species indicated deep contemplation, or perhaps the contemplation of crushing something small. The sheer absurdity of the human's threat momentarily stalled her logic circuits. Define peak boredom, human? Provide a quantifiable metric that justifies the diversion of imperial resources. It's when you start inventing games with the dust motes, Alex said, gesturing vaguely toward the shimmering particles floating in the light. It's when you realize that your entire existence is a loop of pacing, eating bland paste, and staring. It kills the soul, Zylara. And a human with a dead soul is a very, very uninteresting specimen to study. I'm losing my spark. I'm losing my humanity. And if I lose my humanity, I stop being a good data source for you. I become a liability. A very small, very whiny liability, capable of singing sea shanties at all hours. I need distraction. I need stimulation. I need a window to the outside world, even if it's a completely fabricated one. My proposal is simple: a television and a cable connection. A small price to pay for the continued integrity of your psychological study. If you were a 5-meter alien queen, would you consider boredom a legitimate threat? Or merely a sign of a weak, underdeveloped species? What is the true cost of captivity beyond the physical constraints? Zylara dismissed Zid with a sharp, clicking sound. She approached the cage, her massive form casting a shadow that swallowed the entire force field. The sheer proximity of her bulk was meant to be intimidating, a silent assertion of power. She was intrigued, despite herself. The human's audacity was novel. Most prisoners begged for freedom. This one was negotiating for better cable, a concept that was utterly alien to her. You speak of entertainment, Zylara rumbled, her voice now a low growl that vibrated in Alex's chest. My people have no need for such trivialities. Our lives are dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, the expansion of the empire, and the perfection of the Cathar form. We find fulfillment in purpose, not in passive consumption. What purpose does this entertainment serve that is worth risking the security of this facility? It serves sanity, Zylara, Alex replied, pacing again, deliberately ignoring her attempt at intimidation. It's how we process the madness of the universe. It's how we learn without having to, conquer things. Look, I'm proposing an exchange. You give me a television and a connection to Earth's satellite network, cable. Specifically, none of that streaming nonsense. The latency is terrible, and you want a crisp signal for your data analysis. And I will provide you with a real-time, unfiltered window into the human psyche. Think of it as a live, interactive cultural feed, Zylara scoffed, a sound like grinding granite, or perhaps the tectonic plates of a small moon shifting. I have access to your entire digital archive. I have read your Shakespeare and your Moby Dick. I have analyzed your social media feeds. I know your psyche. Your species is predictable, driven by fear, lust, and an insatiable desire for sugary beverages. No, you don't, Alex countered, shaking his head with genuine pity. You've read the textbooks. You've analyzed the data, but you haven't seen the reality. You haven't seen a human being cry over a fictional character on a soap opera. You haven't seen the sheer, unadulterated joy of a sporting event where two teams chase an inflated sphere. You haven't seen a cooking competition where someone is eliminated for a soggy bottom, a tragedy of truly cosmic proportions. That, Zylara, is the human condition. It's the chaos, the illogical passion, the overreaction to the mundane. And it's infinitely more complex than your military dossiers suggest. Your data is sterile. My cable box is life. He leaned closer to the force field, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, a sound that forced Zylara to lower her massive head to hear him. Think of it as environmental enrichment, Your Majesty. A stimulated specimen is a healthy specimen. A bored specimen is a dull specimen. And a dull specimen is a waste of a perfectly good 5-meter cage. Besides, he added, a mischievous glint in his eye, imagine the look on Zid's face when he has to explain the concept of a reality show to the Imperial Council. Is it possible to truly understand a culture by analyzing its data and history alone? Or is the key to understanding found in its most trivial and seemingly inefficient forms of entertainment? Where do we find the most honest reflection of the human condition? The Imperatrix Xylara was a creature of logic, and the prospect of observing the humans' chaos in real time, rather than through filtered historical data, appealed to her sense of comprehensive intelligence gathering. Alex's argument, while ridiculous, possessed a certain perverse efficiency. If the human was to be a subject of study, he needed to be observed in his natural, stimulated state. And if that required a box of lies, so be it. The order was given, much to the silent horror of her technical staff. The installation was a marvel of cross-cultural engineering and bureaucratic nightmare. Xylara's best technicians, who normally designed warp drives and planetary defense systems, were now struggling with a coaxial cable and a universal remote. Their frustration was palpable, a low collective hum of alien distress that was almost as loud as the force field. They had to create a micro-dimensional portal to tap into Earth's geosynchronous satellite network, a task they considered beneath their dignity. The lead engineer, a six-limbed being named Krell, slammed one of his 4 fists onto the console in exasperation. "Imperatrix," Krell reported, his voice a strained, high-pitched whine. "The human's cable box is a relic. It communicates via an archaic analog signal that requires a physical connection. Our dimensional bridge can transmit data across light years, but it refuses to recognize this. This coaxial wire. It is inefficient. It is illogical. It is an insult to Cathar engineering." Xylara, towering over the scene, merely observed. The human promised a window into their chaos. "Ensure the window is clear, Krell. Failure is not an option." Alex, ever the opportunist, piped up from his cage. "Hey, Krell, try wiggling the connector. Sometimes you gotta find the sweet spot. And did you check if the TV is set to cable or antenna? It's usually a little switch on the back. It's a common human design flaw. We call it planned obsolescence. It keeps the technicians employed." Krell shot Alex a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. But eventually, after much wiggling and a desperate search for the antenna setting, the signal stabilized. The sight of a 4-armed alien engineer swearing in Cathar because he couldn't find the input button on a cheap plastic remote control was a small, delicious victory for Alex, who offered unhelpful advice from inside his cage. Finally, the screen flickered to life. A massive, high-definition display, easily 3 meters wide, was mounted just outside the force field, angled perfectly for Alex. The sheer size of the screen was a testament to Xylara's over-engineering. She did nothing small. The resolution was so crisp, Alex could practically count the pixels on the human news anchors' faces. Xylara watched with an expression of utter disdain as Alex immediately began flipping through channels, a dizzying blur of images and sounds. He settled on a documentary about great white sharks, the majestic predators of Earth's oceans. "What is this?" Xylara demanded, her voice cutting through the documentary's dramatic score. "These creatures are primitive, inefficient predators. They possess no advanced intelligence, no social structure. They are merely biological machines. Why would you dedicate resources to observing them when you have the entire cosmos at your disposal?" "Because they're awesome, Xylara," Alex said, simply leaning back against the force field, a look of genuine awe on his face. "Their pure, unadulterated efficiency. They're nature's perfect killing machine honed over millions of years. You, a conqueror, should appreciate that. It's a study in cold biological perfection. Look at the musculature. Look at the speed. No politics, no drama, just pure predatory instinct." Xylara watched, fascinated, as a shark breached the water, its massive jaws snapping shut on a seal. A low, guttural sound escaped her throat, a sound Alex recognized as grudging respect. The speed, the power, all for a single small meal. A waste of energy, but effective. They are what your species could be if you shed your emotional baggage. And miss out on the fun? Alex chuckled. "No thanks." For the next hour, Xylara stood motionless, captivated by the raw, brutal beauty of the Earth's oceans. She, who commanded fleets and subjugated entire star systems, was momentarily lost in a world of fins and teeth. She even ordered Zid to begin a comparative analysis of the shark's hunting patterns versus the Cathar's latest drone technology. The cage, for a brief time, became a shared classroom. Why are we so drawn to the raw, untamed power of nature, even when we possess the technology to dominate it? Does the appreciation of simple, brutal efficiency hint at a deeper, primal instinct, even in the most technologically advanced beings? The shark documentary was a gateway drug, a safe first step into the chaos of human television. The next day, Alex introduced Zylara to the world of human drama. He tuned into a daytime soap opera, a world of betrayal, secret twins, and dramatic reveals. The sheer volume of emotional turmoil on the screen was a sensory overload. Zylara was initially contemptuous. Their emotional responses are wildly disproportionate to the stimuli. The male is clearly lying about the paternity of the child, yet the female continues to engage in dialogue rather than employing immediate, lethal force. This is not survival. This is self-sabotage. That's the point, Zylara, Alex explained, munching on a handful of Earth-standard pretzels, a new amenity he'd negotiated, along with a small, insulated cup for water. We thrive on complexity. We love drama. We create problems just so we can solve them, or in this case, watch other people fail to solve them. It's a safe way to experience chaos without, destroying a planet. It's catharsis. It's a way to practice emotional responses without real-world consequences. But slowly, subtly, the soap opera began to work its magic. Zylara, the Imperatrix, the unfeeling conqueror, started to ask questions that were less analytical and more invested. She started referring to the characters by name, her massive claws tapping impatiently on the crystal floor during commercial breaks. Why does the female continue to trust the male, even after the holographic evidence of his deceit was presented? She asked one afternoon, her voice laced with a genuine, uncharacteristic frustration that Alex found hilarious. Her logic matrix is clearly compromised. I would have him exiled to a penal colony on a methane gas giant. Because she loves him, Zylara, Alex replied, trying to keep a straight face. And love for humans is a glorious, illogical, self-destructive mess. It overrides the logic matrix. It's the ultimate vulnerability and the ultimate strength. Illogical, Zylara repeated, the word sounding alien on her tongue, as if she were tasting a bitter, unknown substance. Yet, compelling. This love is a significant vulnerability, a weakness that can be exploited by a superior force. I must study it further. I must understand the mechanisms of this self-inflicted wound. Or, Alex countered, meeting her gaze, his expression serious for the first time. It's the only thing that makes the whole mess worthwhile. It's what we fight for, Zylara. Not for borders, not for resources, but for the right to feel this illogical, glorious mess. If an emotion like love is demonstrably illogical and creates vulnerability, why has it persisted as a core driver of human behavior and storytelling? Is true strength found in the absence of feeling, or in the ability to endure the pain that deep connection brings? Weeks turned into months. The cage was still there, humming softly, but its purpose had fundamentally shifted. It was no longer a prison for Alex. It was a viewing booth for Zylara. The atmosphere in the chamber had changed from one of tense captivity to one of strange, shared cohabitation. She had moved her massive throne closer to the cage, a subtle but significant gesture. Sometimes she would even sit on the floor, her 5-meter frame curled up like a massive, scaly cat, utterly engrossed in the screen. The guards, once rigid and intimidating, now stood slightly less at attention, occasionally glancing at the screen themselves, trying to follow the convoluted plot of the soap opera. The engineers had to install a second, much larger screen for Zylara herself, as her eyes couldn't track the tiny human images from her original distance. The chamber, once a cold monument to power, now felt strangely domestic. Alex had even convinced Zylara to allow him to hang a small framed poster of a sunset inside his cage, arguing it was essential for mental health. Alex, meanwhile, had upgraded his living situation considerably. He had a small, comfortable mattress, a mini fridge, stocked with earth food, not nutrient paste, including a surprising amount of spicy mustard that Zylara had developed a taste for, and a small table. He and Zylara had developed a strange routine. They watched the news together, Xylara commenting on human geopolitics with the detached analytical perspective of a galactic overlord. Your species' obsession with these borders is inefficient, she'd state, her voice full of imperial disdain. A unified planet would be a far more formidable foe. The resources wasted on internal conflict are staggering. Yeah, well, we're working on it, Alex would reply, offering her a bowl of popcorn. A successful negotiation that took 3 days of intense debate over the optimal popping temperature. But imagine how boring it would be if we all agreed on everything. No drama, Xylara. No fun. One evening, they were watching a romantic comedy, a genre Xylara found particularly baffling. The human protagonist was making a grand, foolish gesture of love, standing in the rain with a boombox over his head. Xylara watched the scene, her expression unreadable, her massive claws resting gently on the crystal floor. Human, she said, her voice softer than Alex had ever heard it, a sound like silk brushing against stone. You have taught me much about your species. You are irrational, self-sabotaging, and obsessed with these fleeting, illogical emotions. You are prone to massive overreactions to minor stimuli. Yet, you endure. You create beauty out of chaos, and you find joy in the most absurd situations. We try, Alex said, smiling, genuinely touched by her unusual moment of introspection. It's the only thing that separates us from the great white sharks, you know. The capacity for self-aware absurdity. Xylara's massive head tilted again, a gesture that no longer felt threatening, but merely curious. I have observed your species' romantic comedies for a standard Earth month. The patterns are repetitive. Initial conflict, a period of forced proximity, a grand, foolish gesture, and an illogical resolution. Yet the emotional investment of your species remains high. Explain the grand, foolish gesture to me in terms of tactical advantage. Alex sighed, a sound of profound human weariness. There is no tactical advantage, Xylara. That's the point. The gesture is a demonstration of vulnerability. It's saying, I am willing to look like a complete idiot in front of the entire world just for you. It's the ultimate act of trust. It's a statement that the illogical connection is more valuable than personal pride or even rational thought. It's a moment of pure, beautiful, self-sabotaging human brilliance. Xylara processed this, her eyes dimming slightly as her internal processors whirred. A high-risk, high-reward strategy based on emotional leverage. Fascinating, and highly inefficient for conquest. Exactly, Alex agreed. Now tell me, Xylara asked, her massive eyes focused on him, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. If you were free right now, truly free, with no constraints, what would be the first thing you would do? Would you run? Would you contact your military? Would you attempt to sabotage my systems? Alex didn't hesitate. He looked at her, the 5-meter queen who had captured him, who now watched rom-coms with him. I'd make you a cup of coffee. A real one. None of that nutrient sludge. I'd show you the difference a good roast makes. And then, we'd watch the rest of this movie on a real couch, a big one, not separated by a force field. I'd show you the difference between a good blend and a bad one. A true ambassador shares his culture's best, not just its chaos. Xylara looked at the force field, then at the screen, then at Alex. The cage, which she had built to contain him, was now containing her. It was the barrier between her power and his simple, compelling humanity, a line she had drawn that he had, through sheer force of will and a cable subscription, slowly erased. The force field was no longer a symbol of her dominance, but a very large, very inconvenient barrier to a decent cup of coffee. When a captor and a captive find common ground in shared triviality, does the nature of their relationship fundamentally change? Is the greatest power not in the ability to cage another, but in the ability to make the captor forget why the cage was built in the first place? The next morning, Alex woke up to silence. The familiar low-frequency hum of the force field was gone. He sat up, heart pounding, the sudden absence of the drone more alarming than its presence. The cage was open. The force field was down. He was free as Xylara was gone. In her place, a small crystalline data pad rested on the floor, still warm from her touch. He picked it up. A single message, in perfect English, was displayed, the text glowing with an inner, cold light. The specimen is no longer contained. The study has reached a new phase. Your species is more complex than I anticipated. Your tibia cabo is a weapon of cultural infiltration, a weakness that exposes the soft underbelly of your society, but also a source of unexpected resilience. I have observed the human capacity for joy and grief in equal measure, and it is a terrifying, beautiful thing. I find myself anticipating the next episode of your MasterChef, a competition that is, surprisingly, a brutal and efficient display of resource management and psychological warfare. The force field is deactivated. The door to the chamber is unlocked. You are free to go. You have a window of 3 Earth hours before the next Imperial Council meeting, where I must now argue for a cultural exchange program instead of a full-scale invasion. But I have a feeling you won't leave. I have installed a new, larger screen in the main viewing room, with a surround sound system that is 400% more efficient than your Earth standard, and a seating arrangement that is, by your standards, cozy. The coffee machine schematic is on the next page, along with a requisition form for Arabica beans, dark roast, high altitude, single origin. Do not disappoint me with the quality of the brew. The fate of the Cathar Empire may depend on it. And frankly, I need the caffeine for this council meeting. Xylera. Alex looked at the open door, a path to the outside world, to freedom, to escape. He looked at the massive, empty chamber. He looked at the data pad and the schematic for the coffee machine. He looked at the newly installed, enormous TV screen in the main viewing area, where the morning news was already starting. A segment on a new human space probe. He sighed. A sound of pure, contented human resignation. He walked out of the cage, a free man. He was no longer a prisoner. He was a cultural ambassador, a barista, and the Imperial remote control operator. His first act of freedom? He walked straight to the kitchen schematic, found the necessary components, and began to brew the coffee. He had a queen to entertain. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was no longer a prisoner. He was the sole purveyor of the Queen's favorite Earth substances, caffeine, drama, and popcorn. He was the most important human in the Cathar Empire, armed with nothing but a remote control and a French press. The ultimate victory of chaos over order, of humanity over the cold logic of the cosmos. He smiled. The game had just begun. He had a queen to entertain, and a reputation for quality to uphold. The galaxy could wait. The schematic was surprisingly detailed, a testament to Xylara's thoroughness, even including a note on the optimal water temperature for a medium-dark roast. As the rich, earthy aroma of the brewing coffee began to fill the vast, sterile chamber, Alex felt a profound sense of peace. He was no longer a specimen to be studied, but a necessary, vital component in the Queen's new illogical routine. He was the one who held the keys to her new addiction, the master of her new, self-inflicted chaos. He was the cultural ambassador, the barista, and the Imperial remote control operator, and for the first time since his capture, he felt truly, gloriously human. He had a queen to entertain, and a reputation for quality to uphold. The galaxy could wait. The rich, earthy aroma of the brewing coffee began to fill the vast, sterile chamber, a scent that cut through the ozone and the alien perfume. It was a small, potent victory. He had a queen to entertain, and a reputation for quality to uphold. The galaxy could wait. Is true freedom the ability to leave, or the realization that you have found a place where you are genuinely needed, even if that place is a former prison? Did Alex win his freedom, or did he simply upgrade his cage?